Welcome to the CodPast podcast, where your fishy past hooks your brilliant future. With Dr. Deborah, Laura, and Dr. Trish.
Yep, as soon as I see it here, waiting.
And then we'll hopefully have Laura pop in here pretty soon. And then smile, we're gonna go start the recording. Oops. Okay.
Got it.
All right, you want to play our song?
Yeah.
There's nothing sticking up.
Welcome to the CodPast podcast, where your fishy past hooks your brilliant future. With Dr. Deborah, Laura, and Dr. Trish.
Yippee! Welcome, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. And we have a lot of fun today. Laura should be popping in here any minute. And she'll understand that she's been on kind of a wild ride for the last week. Dr. Deborah has been with Laura out in La Jolla. She's got her La Jolla shirt on right now. She's back in Michigan. And I'm here in my new house in Carefree, Arizona. Carefree, Arizona. And I'm here with my former husband, the most famous on the planet, probably, platinum rock star from original Steve Miller Band. This is Steve McCarty.
Hi, everybody. How you doing?
We're so glad he's here.
Oh, we're so glad he's here. And
Trish hog-tied me to do this.
I love it. I love it.
I'm actually tied up to the chair.
I think it's dog-tied, actually.
Dog-tied. Hog-tied, dog-tied. What's the difference?
Anyway, it's going to be a fun day. Steve's always pretty funny. I always used to think that he should have his own Johnny Carson show because he's pretty funny. And as soon as Laura gets here, we'll have the two comedians, and then Deborah and I will try to ground them.
There's already way too many of those guys. You got Jimmy Kimmel and Colbert and, all the follow-ups to, Conan. I mean, think of all the talk show hosts you got now,
Yeah, well, they're not that great. Some of them are.
And they all followed the king of comedy, Johnny Carson.
Oh, he's great.
Yeah,
Carson
we were
was great.
watching him last night. Steve stayed here. He had a bunch of stuff to do in Phoenix. So he always hosts me when I'm down by his place. And I got to host him last night in my new place. So, do you have a fishy past joke?
I will get a fishy past joke up there, but while I'm getting it up here, which I have, I just wanted to say to Steve, thank you so much for the music that you gave us. And I'm a 70s kid, so and I was from just south of the Motor City is where I went to high school. So we love the Steve Miller Band so much.
Thank you very much for saying that. I
so much.
Fortunately, I get to hear that all over the world, and those songs, classic rock songs, have touched so many millions of people, and that's always the greatest reward, even more than the platinum records or royalties. The fact that those songs, compositions resonate with so many people is why I do it. It's why I've always been chosen to be a songwriter and an artist.
Oh,
well,
I play those songs all the time. They're on the top of my playlist along with some of the other greats, and they're great songs. They're songs about life. They're songs about happiness. They're songs about love. They're songs about just fun, and I just love that. But I do have
the 70s were the 60s and the 70s, I think, were the epitome of great songwriting, and Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band from Michigan, where you live. Great band, great artists. They were part of that whole classic rock thing, and the Eagles and Fleetwood Mac, and all the great 70s bands. Elton, Clapton. We can go on and on, but I think it was really the epitome of great songwriting.
Oh my gosh, and
well,
just you could go.
raw talent, because
Raw
now
talent,
if
raw
you don't
talent.
have if you don't have great talent, it's not a big deal if they can sell your looks, because they can do the reverb on the mics and they can do the fake music, and they can actually, even I think, isn't it, they can take your voice and then they can make it more
Oh, they can do all kinds of tricks with but there's nothing like real talent and great songwriting. You know, you can there's a million tricks in the studio and stuff that you can do to enhance recordings and technology, but it doesn't write great songs. You know, the truly great songs, people ask me every day, you know, about that. How do I write a song? And, you know, I'd be a billionaire if I had $1 for every time somebody's asked me that. But basically, I always say, you know, the one criteria about great songwriting, great songs, is does it stand the test of time? Is it timeless? You know, is it great the day it came out, and is it great 50 years later or 100 years later? Take a Beatles song, you know, or a Dylan song, or what we're talking about, the classic rock stuff. It'll be just as great 100 years from now. You know, they're truly great works of art. You know, fine art, and I think that's kind of that's one of the things that distinguishes them from so much the plethora of mediocrity out there in the media today.
I haven't looked exactly up the statistics, but I would bet that the 70s and the 80s, 60s, 70s music is played more prevalently by all generations than any music that has been done. I mean, Tom Petty and Prince and, you know, all the Beatles, like you said, and then each Beatle separately, and Steve Miller Band and
yeah, my son would say the same thing. He's 33, John Dillon. He's a good musician, but he says, God, Dad, he says, my generation, he says, you know, the 60s and 70s, he says, it never got any better than that. He says, I don't know what my generation's going to be known for. I think there is some truth in that, you know. I mean, like I said, you can play a Rolling Stone song, you know, with Keith Richards and Mick, or a Beatles song, and they're just as great today as the day they came out, or Pink Floyd, or take your pick.
Take your pick, the Who, I mean, you name it. They're just awesome, right? And people can sing along. They know the songs. Everybody knows I'm a joker. I can't sing, but
you know, people live
is amazing.
vicariously through those songs for decades. You know, I have to play. I'm forced to play the Joker. I'm forced to play the Joker all over the world, even if I want to play R&B or jazz or classical, or, you know, people want to hear the hit songs. You know, and the Joker actually came out almost 50 years ago. When I play that, kids think it was just written. They just love it, you know, and everybody can relate to the Joker.
Do the most famous line.
But it's, you know, they have no idea that it's almost a half a century old. When that came out in 1973.
And what's the most famous line in it? Sing it.
Which line?
Just sing whatever line.
Oh, I'm not going to sing it.
No, sing one line.
No, everybody knows the Joker. You know,
do it.
You're talking about she always relates to the pompatus of love.
No, I do like that one, but do I'm a joker, I'm a smoker.
I'm a midnight toker. And now midnight tokers can toke all over legally, because it's legal everywhere but in the federal government, which will happen. I don't know when that's going to happen, but you
I'm
know,
a joker, I'm a smoker, I'm a midnight toker. And you do it.
It's really a novelty song that came out in 1973 and ended up becoming a huge hit. And then nobody heard from the Steve Miller Band for almost 3.5, 4 years, until Fly Like an Eagle came out.
Oh, I love that song.
Yeah. And then that went to a whole nother level of superstardom, where there were the Joker was just a novelty hit by itself. And then when Fly Like an Eagle came out in 1976, our bicentennial year, there were 3 hit singles off the same album, which was unheard of. You know, the Eagles did it. I think Fleetwood Mac did it. We did it. And it's still a huge record today.
Right?
Seal did a cover of Fly Like an Eagle that was the title track to Space Jam, a Warner Brothers movie where when Michael Jordan was the biggest athlete in the world at the apex of his career. He did they did a movie with him where he interacted with all the Warner Brothers cartoon characters, Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd, and the title track was "Fly Like an Eagle," and Seal covered it. Seal did, which is pretty true to the original arrangement. It's a really good cover.
He did a really good job.
And he did a great job.
What about the Postal Service? Didn't they do different renditions?
Well, yeah, and then after that, the poet became the logo song, signature song for the Postal Service, and for
Which
years,
one did?
with an
one?
eagle. There's still an eagle on the side of the UPS trucks.
Yeah.
And somebody said, how could that, be worth $10 million, to the licensing fee on that? And I said, well, just think about it. They took over a huge market share from FedEx and from UPS. All of a sudden, they were back on the map.
It was branding.
Largely because of that branding, man. It's like, hey, we're going to fly like an eagle, and the eagle on the truck, and, ran for years.
Well, that was one decision, one good decision the government made. I don't know where there's many other ones, but that
might be the only one, huh?
Yeah, maybe.
That might be.
Maybe. I
struggle to find other good decisions that the government is.
All I can say is I am so glad that I graduated in 1973 from high school. So I enjoyed literally, I think, the best 20 years on the planet between, going to school.
Except for now.
Although I would say it seems so much freer then. It just seems so much freer.
Now is fine, but I totally agree with you that I think we were fortunate enough, blessed enough to live in the golden period of life, really, when we could,
Oh, this sounds like my parents.
No, we were just the 60s and the 70s, and
the good old days.
Well, no, think about it, and we could travel anywhere in the world. And
sounds like my grandparents.
Why don't you shut up for a second and let me finish?
Oh, wow.
We were able to travel all over the world freely and go to restaurants and movies and concerts, and there was no COVID, and pretty much we were exempt from war on this side of the planet in the Northern Hemisphere. I just think it was the golden period to be alive.
Yeah, I loved it. I tell you, it's great. And we were, I don't know, I just liked it a lot. But, Steve, I don't know you. I only know you through all the things that I've heard about you. But I do know your music. And I'm just wondering, and it's probably the question you've been asked a million times, but really, do you get an idea for a song and then you write it down, or do you get the music first, or do you, because you wrote many of the Steve Miller Band's famous hits. How's your process work?
Like I said, if I had $1 for every time somebody's asked me that,
here, I'll give you $1.
How do you write a song?
Yeah.
And I'm always pretty happy to respond. And there are many ways to write songs. The majority of songs, especially, like classic rock songs, the music really comes first.
Okay.
How do I explain this? The music usually comes first, and then you set lyrics to it. Okay. So I'll give you an example. You might pick a melody out of this air, whatever it is, zippity doo dah, zippity, and then you start to develop that, and you refine it and you refine it. It's like sculpting, you remove what doesn't work, you keep layering and layering, and it's fine art. It's like doing a painting or a sculpture. You keep working on that and you refine that melody. With music, lyrically, unlike a free form poem that you could just recite and it doesn't have music to it, it can be free form. It doesn't have to rhyme. It could be all over the map. But when you put it to music, it's got all these parameters. You have rhythm and melody and timing and tempo and phrasing and phonetics, all these different, that's where the real art and craft of songwriting comes in. So when you start a song, sometimes you write lyrics, and you set that to music, but I'd say 90% of the time, 85% of the time, first the music comes about, and then you go, okay, where does that music take me? What kind of mood does that set? Is it a love song? Is it a ballad? Is it, an escape song? Is it a novelty song? Is it is it a hard rocker? Is it a soft, is it acoustic? Where where does that take you? What state does that put you in? Then you would try to craft lyrics that fit that state
Wow.
of consciousness, of mind, of that vibration. So, this is a love song. This sounds like a love song. Okay. So then you start, trying to craft a love song to that melody, and if, does that help explain?
Very much so. And I'm a bit surprised, and I think it's great. That I love how you said you craft it like an artist, because that's true. It is a process when you do any kind of art. Of course, music is art, but that you do the sound first, the melody and the fun, and
Well,
then
I've written all those different ways. I've written for string quartet. I just recorded a couple of things last November in California with part of the symphony. Soundtrack stuff that I'm hoping one of them is going to be a title track for hopefully a major motion picture, like a Marvel movie,
nice.
like a Beauty and the Beast or Aladdin or Lion King, and which is unusual for me, but I've written all those different ways. I've written lyrics and then set it to music, and I've written so many songs where I found the music and I wrote the music and then crafted lyrics to fit it. So there's many different ways that songs come about. Sometimes it can be magical, where all of a sudden the lyrics and the music kind of come out simultaneously, and they might not be perfect, the lyrics, but it kind of dictates where the song is. This is where the song is, this is what it's about. And then you would keep refining and refining the lyrics and the music to craft it into a piece of fine art, but I got tired years ago of people saying, what do you do? What do you do for a living? I go, well, I'm a songwriter. And most of the time they would look at you like, oh, you're a songwriter, like it was and then when they asked me if I'd done any, what have I accomplished? I would tell them, and they go, oh my God, these are great songs. But I got tired of that, being a lowly songwriter. So when people ask me what I do, I say I'm a sculptor, which is
I
not
love that.
And they say, well, what do you sculpt? Bronzes? And I go, no, I sculpt songs. I use music and lyrics, but it's the same thing. Where a sculptor will be doing a bronze or a Carrara marble, like Michelangelo or Bernini, and as Michelangelo said about David, he said the marble, it just came forth. David just came forth from the rock. He revealed what it was meant to be.
Oh, I love it.
I think there's a lot of truth in that.
Well,
anyway,
and what you just,
if
oh,
that helps
sorry.
explain, so I tell people, I sculpt, with lyrics and music, and it's the same process. I try to explain that, it's all about layering and layering and layering and sculpting, and then standing back, removing yourself from it and looking at it and go, okay, that's timeless, but this is superfluous and this is unnecessary, and it just clutters the art. So I'm going to get rid of that, and then I'm going to layer and layer some more, and then I'm going to look at that and go, okay, what's timeless? What's lasting about this? It's truly timeless, and leave that, and then remove the superfluous, and that's the process.
Well, I love that, Steve. Thanks so much. That was such a great answer to my question. But one thing you said sort of hit me as at the end there almost, is that you got tired of people saying, oh, you're just a songwriter, you're just a dreamer. And that's what we are trying to get away from, is people saying to us, oh, your dream's too big.
Good enough.
Yeah, your dream's too big. What do you think you're doing? I mean, we've heard this all our lives.
You're never going to make money from that.
Right. All of that. And I just think I'm just so proud that you just decided, you know what, I'm going to do what I want to do. And sometimes you have to play the game to be the game. That's
Thank you for saying that, because I only was a starving songwriter for about 25 or 30 years. Nobody in their right mind would ever choose to do that, really. And all the tens of thousands of hours of rehearsal and practice and refining your art, you know, and
But
becoming
that
a
was your
skilled
dream, right? That
becoming
was
a
your dream
skilled
inside of
musician.
you.
Yeah, but I try to tell people, you know, today kids want to be a rock star for the fame and fortune. Everybody wants to be a rock star, you know, or a movie star.
Girls.
You know, I never, ever got into it. When I was about 13, I decided I was so profoundly touched by songs and what they could do. I mean, I was a professional actor as a child, and I realized that what might take 2 or 3 hours to say in a stage play or in a movie, you could perhaps get across in 3 or 4 minutes in a song. That it could actually cause an epiphany. You know, people would actually could actually attain, you know, bits of enlightenment and it was transformational. So I understood at an early age the incredible power of songs, how powerful they are. And that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So I chose to do it, to be an artist, to hopefully bring about some healing, joy, and enlightenment and entertainment as well to the planet, to humanity. That became my obsession, even though, like I said, I starved for 25 years and it was just a fluke that I became a rock star. You know, that wasn't planned, you know. I never did it for that reason.
Oh, wow, that's a great story. I love that. Yeah, I don't know if I'm talking too much, Trish, but I just
No. I want, because I know him. I
I
mean,
know
we
you
could
do
talk
know
all-
him, but just
I-
about the planet and about bringing people joy and peace. I know that you're a very strong person when it comes to humanity and trying to do well for humanity. What would you say your kind of mission in life is?
I just described my mission. Now, Trish and I've always been passionate about education. My mother was an educator, and I've always been passionate about education. So Trish and I kind of stopped our lives for 12 years and did nonprofit, you know, charter schools for high risk children. We had kids from all over the world, Native Americans, you know, kids from Africa, from Hispanic kids, you know, Muslim kids, all over the world. And we built a campus, and I became the fine arts director. And of course, Trish was the CEO. And we basically killed ourselves in the barrio for 12 years. And we went all over the world to talk about education, what children really need, you know,
Wow.
what is real education. We've strayed so far from that, especially in the United States. So we went to Windsor Castle, and we went to the Vatican and worked with the Pontifical Academy of Sciences. And it really became our mission to try and help children, you know, to try to bring about
believe in their
self-awareness
dream.
and
Believe in their
enlightenment
dream and responsibility.
and responsibility, self-awareness from the earliest age, you know, and that involves not only children, but parenting and teachers and a lot.
But the environment is probably, I mean, Wild Mountain Honey is one of his
Yeah,
favorite
I'm
songs.
probably first and foremost an environmentalist. I've always been crazy about the wilderness and John Muir and you know,
And the bees,
Emerson
the
and
bees being our canaries.
I'm a huge advocate for the environment and the wilderness and the planet, for Gaia, you know, Mother Earth, you know. So I've tried to incorporate that in my writing. I guess one of my most famous songs is called Wild Mountain Honey, that was the longest song on Fly Like an Eagle, the album I was talking about that had 3 hit singles. And it's also on our greatest hits record. And it's very much a Zen statement in Western terms about really the web of life, the interrelatedness and the interconnectedness of all living things. And it's very ethereal. It's otherworldly. You know, we were talking about songwriting and all the different ways that songs come about. But Wild Mountain Honey is very unusual because it was channeled to me, the lyrics, not the music, but the lyrics were, it's the only song I can really say that about. In the early 70s, I think it was 1970 or 71, I was living up in the giant redwood trees in Northern California in Marin County. And I woke up at sunrise in this old, I rented this old lodge from the 20s way up in the giant redwood trees by itself. And I woke up about 5 a.m. and just kind of came to, and the lyrics poured out of me. I mean, in like 5 minutes, it was channeled. And then it took me about 1.5 2 years to write the music to it, to set that to music. But they really are, I think, otherworldly lyrics written, channeled through me by higher beings, if you will.
And maybe for time, because I think right now the environment's kind of heavy on the young kids, high school, college, and also that idea of interconnectedness. I mean, for Pete's sake, when he wrote that, the only people that believed that were really indigenous.
I'll just follow up by saying that, and then I'll stop talking. But Wild Mountain Honey, it's been such a huge song for so many people, millions of people. I've gotten so much feedback from people that resonate with that song on so many levels. But it talks about, I used honey because to symbolize that connection to the food chain and the web of life. I mean, we over almost half of our food is because of bees.
Yeah.
That pollinate. They're so critically important. Well over 1/3 to 1/2 of all the food in the world is because of bees. And then I found out in the early 70s that the ancient Egyptians, when they would wound themselves in battle, they would slap organic honey on their wounds, and they would heal something like 10 times, 20 times faster. And I went, wow, that is incredible. I mean, honey is not a natural substance. It's manufactured by the bees. They gather the blah, 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 and then but anyway, I use that symbolically, the relationship, the interrelatedness and interconnectedness of all things, right? If we destroy the bees, we destroy ourselves.
I never knew that. I knew the bees were important, but I never knew that.
And part of the lyrics say, come on, mama, heal this lonesome man, grow the tree of wholeness in this desert land. Come on, children, now learn how to run by heaven, the stars, the moon, and the sun. I'm basically talking about getting back in balance, like our ancient ancestors with the cosmos, and the planets and planet Earth. And then there's a line in I think it's the 3rd verse in Wild Mountain Honey that says, come on, Papa, your end is the means. Don't trade your love and goodness for the golden machine. Don't become separated by the technological mentality. I realized even then in the 60s that Marshall McLuhan, one of the Bibles in the 60s was Marshall McLuhan, the medium is the message. And it basically said that the machine is supposed to be an extension of man. Man is not supposed to be an extension of the machine. And we fight that today more than ever with everybody's looking at a damn monitor and a laptop and a cell phone all day long. And it's further separated us from the food chain. We don't take walks together as a family, and people don't look at each other in the eyes over dinner and say, hey, what did you do today? How was school today? What was going on with you? Everybody's, looking at their cell phone, answering emails, or playing, the kids are playing violent video games. And it's further separated us from the food chain and from the web of life. Anyway, that's what Wild Mountain Honey is about.
Oh, I love that. I think there should.
I want you to tell them about.
I think there should be.
Well, the line in Wild Mountain Honey is, you who run for the money, you don't even know about Wild Mountain Honey. So it's a play on words. You who run for the money, who are obsessed with money, you who run for the money, and you're awake, you don't even know about Wild Mountain Honey. So it's a call to become aware of what we've been talking about the food chain, about the web of life, about the interrelatedness and interconnectedness of all living things.
And get outside. I mean, Steve, that's why this song was so far ahead of its time. And there's a lot of part of me that thinks that now is the time. And
It's time to re-release it.
Well, I re-recorded it years ago. It's never come out. And
Oh.
I had always wanted to do an organic version of it.
We need it now, because what
came out since we recorded it in the early 70s. It was recorded at the old CBS studios in San Francisco on Folsom Street, which have long been gone for decades. And a lot of the guitar parts it was synthesized. Steve Miller, right, and Byron Allred. We used the synthesizer to simulate woodwinds, clarinet, bassoon, oboe, and it became a signature thing in the song, the acoustic guitar, the bass, the sitar guitar, which is very famous. It sounds like a sitar crossed with the guitar. And it's got that East meets West Zen thing, it's very much East meets West. And but I'd always wanted to do an organic version of it. So it took me over a year going in and out of the studio to record it. This is decades later with, I used real clarinet and real bassoon instead of synthesized. I used real sitar, and I wrote everything and arranged everything, but I used acoustic guitar. I used real sitar instead of a sitar guitar. And I used real woodwinds, and I used, and there's no amplification of any kind on it. It's all completely organic, natural, acoustic. It's pretty powerful. It's very exotic. And at some point I'll release it.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I think a lot of the classical players, weren't they from Santa Fe, or can you bring it?
I did use some, I recorded that in Phoenix, in California, and in Santa Fe.
Opera, the guys that play for that.
Yeah, I used some of the players.
That song, when I met Steve, the funny thing about that is that I really didn't like the Steve Miller Band. I know I'm the only person on the planet. I mean, I loved Abracadabra because we're always magical, but I like the Rolling Stones. That was
we all like
band.
the Rolling Stones.
And I can't get no satisfaction. And that's probably my theme song, right? But I loved Wild Mountain Honey, because even in the days that I discovered the Steve Miller Band, I was worried about the environment, and I lived in Colorado, and I had a brand new baby teenager, and I was trying to figure out how can I raise him so that he loves the environment. And to me, the environment was God. It's like God put this stuff here to teach us lessons. And plus, I was in Durango, where there are a lot of Native American, a lot of different tribes live around Durango, Colorado. And I was highly influenced by that. I had an uncle that lived as the kind of white liaison for the tribe. So we really cared about that as a family. And that song used to make me cry. I used to play it over and over and over. And I mean, then later on, when I met Steve and we'd be in all these concerts, people would come up and tell us the funniest stories about what they've done on Wild Mountain Honey, in lots of stories that it was like, too much information.
Yeah.
Name it. People made love to that song. They got married to that song. They had babies
drugs,
to that song. They did acid to that song. Name it. But it's really, Wild Mountain Honey is one of those really cosmic songs that
it's like a painting that speaks
well,
to
it's
you.
like taking an acid trip without taking drugs. Pink Floyd does the same thing. It's really unusual, because it actually you go on a trip, when you're listening to that song without taking any drugs, which is not necessary.
I have to tell you,
it's really a catalyst, I think, an enlightenment catalyst song, which is very, I mean, there's all kinds of songs like we were talking about. There's ballads, there's love songs, there's escape songs. But that's to me one of the reasons I've always been a songwriter and cherished the power of songwriting is that occasionally, very rarely, sometimes you can not only serve to entertain but also enlighten in the same song. That's one of those songs that's not only serves to entertain but also to enlighten, which is very unusual. And I think we need so much of that now.
So much. But I have to tell you just a funny side story. It is so funny. Steve played a concert in San Francisco. I forgot where you were. Were you in that theater, the old original
I think it was
theater?
the old Palace where
you originally
the
were.
Palace Hotel where the president got assassinated in 1800s.
Well, thanks for reminding
No,
me.
it's a very famous, the
But anyway,
Palace.
we're in there and he played this great concert and we were tired. It was late at night and he never eats or drinks anything alcoholic before he goes on stage. He wants to be on, right? So afterward, he's always really hungry. And we were just ducking into the quickest place we could go, which was like the little cafe in the hotel. And we're sitting there at this little table, like a little French table, kind of tired and sort of trying to gather up, speed. And this guy comes up. We both laughed so hard. We laughed all night long. And he goes, he says something like, "Hey man."
I'll tell you, you remember it
Oh, you're
differently
from
than
Florida.
you remember it differently. I think what she's talking about, she remembers it differently. I had just finished playing and I'm on stage, like unplugging guitars or grabbing instruments or something. And this guy, and was very well received by the audience and stuff. And this guy comes up, I'm on stage and just finishing it. And this guy comes up and he says, "Wow, man." He says, "That was so great." He says, the Joker, he says, "All these years, I thought you were singing, I really love your teachers want to shake your tree." And I basically was rolling on the floor, so, he says, "You were singing, I really love your peaches, want to shake your tree." Right.
I think you wrote that song about Trish.
And it proved, actually my partner wrote it, Steve Miller wrote it, but I perform it all over the world, but it's another validation of the fact that songs are so subjective. People it's so subjective how people interpret lyrics, song lyrics. But that's an all-time classic. We still laugh about it.
I love that song.
I said, wait, I said, stay right here. I gotta go get Trish. Come here, tell her exactly what you told me, right?
I had schools, and we were like,
I had to have him repeat it to Trish that all those years he thought that the lyrics were, "I really love your teachers, want to shake your tree." And Trish and I, having nonprofit schools for high-risk kids, we were like hysterical about it.
Like, how could you hear that song for 30 years or something and then go? I mean, the whole song is a pretty like sexual kind of charged song. In fact, didn't Steve Miller get in trouble by
it's just a novelty song. I mean, Miller's got all these identities since the 60s, the Space Cowboy and the Gangster of Love and the Joker, and he's got all these, alter ego.
All right, now you can tell them the politics.
Hi, Laura.
And
Hi, Laura.
Hi, Laura. And anyway, it was a funny story that again, talks about how subjective lyrics are. People have their own, everybody interprets a Beatles song a different way. When you listen, when you listen to "Let It Be" or "Blackbird" or whatever it is, everybody interprets, differently. It's subjective,
Well,
So,
the Peaches one is one that is just totally turns me on, and I just always thought, oh, I'd love a guy to sing that song to me.
Actually, my partner Steve Miller got sued years later by Ahmet Erdogan, who's dead. He was like one of the heads of Warner Brothers and Capitol, and he wasn't Capitol, but a very famous guy, and he had written a lyric way back in the 50s or something. I think he stole it from somebody, but it basically said, if you don't want my peaches, then don't shake my tree. And somehow Steve got into his subconscious, and like decades later, he wrote that line in The Joker that says, I really love your peaches, want to shake your tree. And he got sued by Ahmet Erdogan and basically had to settle out of court and give the guy, I don't know, I can't remember what the settlement was, but it was stupid, but it was valid. I mean, there was some truth in it, but that one line, and it was like, hey, you plagiarized that line about it's a hook line, it's a boy meets girl kind of hook line or whatever. It doesn't matter, boy meets girl, but it's
Is that the one about the panties, black lace panties?
no, that's Abracadabra.
Oh yeah, right.
Anyway,
he got in trouble for that.
No, he didn't.
No, from Sullivan, when they weren't allowed to say it on the Ed Sullivan show, black lace panties.
No, not the Ed Sullivan show. Steve never did the Ed Sullivan show. You're talking about you're talking about Jet or Liner, the single. In those days, singles is what sold the album. Kids today go, what's an album? But anyway, record album. So the way it worked, the top 40, top 50, and the top 10, if you were lucky enough to have one song off your album make it through the charts into the top 100 and then the top 50, and then wow, man, the top 20. And then if it got into the top 10, it was a hit song. I mean, big hit, right? And that's what sold the albums. People loved the single, and they go, oh man, I'm gonna go buy their whole album, and that's the way it worked then. Now everybody downloads, wants to stream songs from Spotify or whatever the hell it is, and not pay any licensing fee, I might add. It's horrible for songwriters and their families, people that have worked on their entire lives on intellectual domain to create, fine art. It's intellectual domain. It's copywritten and patented, a song from the U.S. Office of Patents and Copyrights, just like a medical device. It would be like if Laura had spent 35 years inventing a medical device that saved lives. There's a lot, you want to use it, there's a licensing fee involved. Or Steve Jobs, creating Apple computers. It's intellectual domain. It's a whole nother subject. But anyway, that's the way it worked, is singles sold albums. And when we did the follow-up to Fly Like an Eagle, Jet Airliner on Book of Dreams, big hit single, there's a line in it that says, at the end, that says, I surely don't want to get caught up in that funky shit going down in the city. And they wouldn't play it on the radio. Because now you can say F word all day long on any TV show, but in those days it was so stupid. So we had to actually go in the studio, and Steve had to overdub, delete that one word and say kicks. I surely don't want to get caught up in those kicks going down in the city, because they wouldn't, that was the single. On the album, it says shit,
Yeah.
Like, hey man, I don't want to get caught up in all the violence and the pollution and inner city turmoil. But anyway, that's the story about that. It was that one word that they wouldn't play on the radio. And
so let's have Laura ask you some questions. Hello, Laura. You've had quite a week, haven't you? So you're muted.
You're muted. Okay.
And we know that you have had quite a week, so you can kind of.
I'm not in the most.
Well, what you want to tell us why?
Well, let's see. It was a week and a few days ago that I got a phone call while I was in La Jolla with Deborah at a Bowie's event, day one, and my husband called, and my house had a fire, and it was actually pretty significant. We did not lose the structure, but it burned very hard, very fast. And so it's a big deal. And my cat did not survive it. And so it was just really shocking. It's almost, I was really lucky because they had a psychologist on site, because when people go back and review their stories, which is what Boeisen is all about, they get triggered and they get a lot of PTSD. So I didn't know how to process this information. It didn't make sense to me. And I was really digging into my humor. Like, we are not fire people, we are flood people. I mean, you can ask Deborah, I had a lot to process. I'm like, I'm not the kind of person that loses a pet in a fire. And she's like, what does that mean? I'm like, I don't know. It is what it is. But
Oh, am I lying?
Yes, everybody's lying.
Laura, first of all, I'm so incredibly sorry that happened to you. I can't even imagine, what it is to lose a home. I've always wondered that, I've always felt great sensitivity to anybody that's lost a home, to a fire. I mean, it's such a devastating natural disaster. I mean, it leaves nothing, no photographs, no diplomas, all your keepsakes, mementos, and then to lose a beloved pet, which is like a child. I'm just really, really sorry. My heart goes out to you guys. I can't even imagine. And I think you're doing pretty well considering.
Thank you, Steve. I think because of the last 3 years have been a series of trauma, drama. I think, our house actually flooded in 2019, same house, it's flooded twice now. I think Mother Nature's telling us something. And I'll tell you, the really interesting metaphysical thing is that Bo wants you to take your story, and the story that reveals my character, to me anyway, was when I held back the flood with my hands. And I mean, obviously you can only hold it back so much, but I did. And so my one true statement about that is Mother Nature picked on the wrong water sign that day. And what's really weird is I was standing on stage making that statement probably when the fire started. And it was if this can save anybody, it was an extension cord surge protector that you use for computers. So everything was done properly. It just had a short or a surge or something. And, it is shocking, but I'll tell you one thing, Steve, I've been through so much the last 3 years. I don't want to suffer anymore. And so I am just trying, because the leading edge of comedy is the trailing edge of tragedy. And I just want to collapse that time, because how many more good years do I have on this earth? Hopefully 50 more, maybe more, but I don't want to suffer in them. So
I understand.
It is, it's the loss of a home, but I also got to build my family in that home for 21 years. There's a lot to be grateful for. And, I'm not always good. Like last night I was in the grocery store and I'm like, what am I doing in Utah? I've got to be home. Oh my God, I lost a pet. Oh my God, I loved her. What am I doing? So sometimes it gets in my mind, because I'm a human too, but I'm really, really trying to work through it, because this is what I want to help others do, is get on the other side.
It's really like losing a loved one, a parent or a child or best friend. All you have is the memories. All that remain is the essence, and the memories in your heart and your soul, but that's enough. You have to, I totally agree with you that there's no time to keep dwelling on how tragic that loss is. You don't have time to do that, man. You got to get on with life.
That's right.
And I would just say one thing to you, is savor the memories of that wonderful childhood home and all the good times and raising the kids there, and, savor the memories.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, I was talking to Scott and Lorraine about that. We went out to dinner with them a couple nights ago, and they were talking about attachment to things, the who, what, when, where, why, the stories, which is what, that's what my jam is. I will say the other thing is all of my potential training equipment, in my house is gone. And I really haven't been a personal trainer for years. But I'm really now a life coach that helps people take those BS narratives they have in their head from their past, audition them and bring them into the future, whatever they want in the future. And so, you know, I'm just trying to lead by example and not suffer.
Well, and you are. I mean, the three of us with the CodPast, the whole thing was premised on, um, uh, you know, your past being maybe drama and hooking your brilliant future. Deborah, what's the actual, our byline?
Well, where your fishy past hooks your brilliant future.
Right. And so who knew we were going to have all this conglomeration of crazy stories, including Steve and mine, of, you know, most people that get divorced are fighting then for the rest of their life. And instead of thinking about all the fun times they had and all the things they had in common, and, you know, all of a sudden it's all destroyed because all you do is concentrate on block. And Laura has taught us so much because she was in that house, and I've been in the house many times, had my own memories of little Tallulah, and, you know, so the interesting part of this is what Laura, Deborah, and I want to be the orgasm that Harry Met Sally had in the restaurant, where people say,
Come again?
Steve woke up. What? Is that like a menage
Steve,
a
that's
trois?
very good.
and so we want to be that people say, I want whatever they've got. Not that they say, would you teach me how to get whatever they want? No, they just want to have it. They just want to have it. And we decided that this podcast, CodPast podcast, would be about living the dream, not teaching it, not having to tell somebody what to do, not saying, oh, you should do this or that, but just living the dream. And hopefully, kind of what Jesus said, don't tell people how they should get to Jesus through this process or that process. Just be the one they come up and say, what happened to you? And we want to be that in our 24 hours a day. We didn't know it was going to challenge Laura to the depths of what just happened, because we compared loss in a conversation we had over this last week about, well, there are different kind of losses, and you have a loss of this or this or this or this. And fire is one of those weird parts that has a lot of parts to it. And so the grief process is always true of any human being. And then how can you jump on top of it? And it has been all over the place. I think all three of us have had sad moments about thinking about Laura, and then funny moments. Like this morning, I was talking to Byron. Can I tell him what I said? I mean, it was the weirdest. It came out of my mouth, if I can even remember it. But it was something like, it was like a CodPast, you know, take your fishy past to hook your brilliant future. And I said, light your past on fire to ignite your future incredibleness. And it came out of my mouth, and Byron was like, oh my gosh, did you hear what you just said? And I said, can you text it? Because I'm driving and I can't remember what I said. But we've been laughing, you know, come on, baby, light my fire. The rock star here.
There's a lot of really bad stand-up jokes in this whole thing, you know.
Oh, for sure.
Recycle it, you know.
Yeah.
Don't get me started. But I think the important thing, one of the important things about this is, you know, I mean, George Harrison said it best: all things must pass, you know. And I think that's very difficult for all of us as human beings, to lose loved ones, to lose a home, to lose a pet, you know, to die. I mean, you know, so I think what's important to know is all things must pass, and the only thing that remains that I know of forever is spirit. You can't destroy that. You know, what is the essence? What are the vibrations? You know, what are the vibes and the essence of what you've done in your life? You know, what will remain after we're gone? You know, what will keep touching people? You know, and really immortalize you because
Love.
yeah, love and enlightenment and joy and healing joy and all those good memories. I said savor the memories, but really that's all that remains that I know of. It is the essence of our spirit. Nothing, everything else passes.
I was,
Guitars, pets, homes.
yeah, I do. I think also, Steve, those memories represent what we've been through on this earth plane. So it's not that you have to hold on to them. You have to trust that they're your anchor to move forward. Believe me, I didn't want to get rid of anything in my house. I loved it. It was exactly as I wanted it. But they are just part of my process as I move forward and letting go of them. I mean, God knows it's an act of God, right? So God said, let go so you can move forward faster like a boomerang because they were holding me back.
Well, like one of those slingshots, really.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Exactly.
it pulled you back to this huge thing. I want to put a little commercial in here because it just was light bulb moment. But I believe it's June coming right up, and you guys can watch. We'll announce it here and every place else. But I know Jack Canfield, who we work with every day with Young Living Oils and with emotional trauma, he's doing a special. He's got an amazing person who I guess is one of the most notable grief specialists in the United States right now. And she's going to do a special thing with Jack, with all of us. And anybody's allowed to go. You don't have to be in Young Living or on Jack's team, if you will. You can just go for free when we announce the Zoom link. But it's about the grief process, and the grief process happens all the time. It can happen when you've lost, a favorite ring. I mean, it's that benign. Grief is just grief, and it's loss and going forward, and how people string that out, and how it starts to destroy and disintegrate their very life, or like Laura, catapult it so far forward because she is willing to work through the process as fast as she can. So she's like, I'm going to get through this as fast as I can. And of course, Deborah is the quintessential humanitarian on the planet. And she's like, well, Laura, there's a grief process and it's going to take some time.
Gonna go through it.
And we're here to just hold you and hold the space, and it's going to be fine. And I'm like, come on, Laura, hurry up. Let's get it going. So, we're wonderful best friends, and we've been in and through a lot together. And Laura traveled with us to Windsor Castle when Steve and I went over there. So we have a lot of history, but a lot of history in the making. So we're just beginning with our history.
We're just beginning. And I just wanted to say one more thing. Steve reminded of it. For one thing, for sure, Steve, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. But we are here, us three girls decided that we are going to see human beings for who they are, in their eyes, in their souls. We're going to be light and love, and we're not going to be right or left or up or down. We're just going to be light and love, and we're hopefully can see that light in people so that we see them for who they are, so that they can just come out of the ashes like a phoenix. I mean, I think we've done that for each other. And sorry about the ashes and the phoenix reference.
and I know I'm in Arizona where Phoenix is, Laura.
There you go. But I just wanted to say that
about this
I'm
forever.
so proud to be part of this triangle. And thank you, Steve, so much.
You're very welcome. I'm happy to share with you today.
So we're
awesome.
gonna do a retreat. We've got our two scheduled, September 9th, 10th, and 11th, and then September 21st through the 25th. And I asked Steve,
You better tell them
we
where.
have to pay him, but
Yes.
Tubac, Arizona, which is below Tucson, which is, there's a very strong spiritual vortex there. We'll talk about that. The Vatican's telescope is not far
It's the
away.
oldest place in
And
Arizona.
it's the oldest place, isn't it one of the oldest missions in the
It is the oldest.
US?
It's the oldest place in Arizona, and
Tamaka
Tamaka is the
And-
national historical park now. The ruins. It was
But
where all the
I
missions started. The California missions. It's where the Anza Trail starts.
And so that Saturday night is a full moon, and we're going to do a full moon ceremony. But one of Steve's best friends is I think he is his best friend. No, one of them. In Tubac at his house, which his house is incredible, full of artwork. He's going to be the chef the night of Saturday night, and he's going to make dinner for us in his backyard, and we get to hear Steve play. I have to pay him.
Really, I just found this out right
But
now.
you-
Wild Mountain Honey. You're gonna play Wild Mountain Honey.
He said yes, and so
Steve didn't say anything, but I'll definitely
you did
consider it.
You said yes if I pay him. He said that. And so, so anyway, you guys watch for the announcement of the retreats and watch for the announcement of Jack's thing on grief. I think all of it's going to be really, really important. And watch Laura on Facebook as we go here, because what she's learning and what she's teaching us right now is on fire.
It is on fire, and you
No,
guys
I
will soar.
I would say it that I think this whole thing, it's really lit a fire under Laura to, manifest her goals.
Yeah, I think you're right, Steve. I think the
That's
universe
a really
kicked me.
that's a really bad joke,
But
Hey,
it's true. It was
it-
better. The
it's the same
floods
thing
kind of the
it's the-
floods doused my
If
spirits,
the
but
same
this
thing
is
had happened to
igniting
me and
it.
somebody said that, I might slap them or punch them. But,
Yeah, but I
these
gotta
are-
really, I roll with it. So
But you
it's
know
all
what,
good.
Laura, it's all things must pass, and we can take nothing with us
That's right.
when we pass,
Amen.
except the essence of who we were and what we left to
Amen.
humanity, to our loved ones, to our friends, to the planet. That's all that remains. So I think you got to keep telling yourself that, that even though I don't understand it, there's some major lessons here, and I'm going to use it to to help me in my healing work the rest of my life. And I'm not going to hold on to stuff, let it go.
Amen.
Love
Amen.
it.
Thank you. Steve, we love you. I'm sorry I missed the top of the hour. I'm in Utah, and I literally thought I had 20 more minutes. And my son said, aren't you already halfway through? And I'm like, oh my God. So I wasn't
Don't
meant to-
worry, Laura. I'm sure it's on tape. Is my one of my best friends. He's got like 3 PhDs. He's a internist and a botanist, biologist. I mean, he's a genius. Mensa. He's almost 80. Alan, an old folk singer too. Alan looked at me one day and he said, Steve, he said, look, he says, don't ever put anything on social media that you're not okay with seeing on the front page of the New York Times.
Yeah.
He's right.
I went, my God,
Oh,
you're right.
God, I
Guys,
should have texted you, Laura. I thought you were
Let's
busy.
retire over to CodPast. I mean,
Okay.
to Clubhouse, and that way people can actually call in or do whatever they do on Clubhouse and talk directly to Steve for the remainder of the hour, which we're already 6
We're already
minutes into.
Beyond an
So,
hour. I don't know
Steve,
if I
thank
can.
you. Thank
you're-
you so
you're
much
very
for
welcome.
this.
Thank
My
you
best
so
to all of
much.
you.
I love you
Love
guys,
you
and
all.
we'll
Love
see
you.
over
See you on
at
Clubhouse.
Clubhouse. Bye-bye.
I have my sunglasses on for you, Steve. See you in a minute.
I wear these because I wear trifocals.